Good morning, it's Karen from Simply Living for Him. I'm actually going to do a daily devotion from my kitchen table this morning. It's been a very, very busy weekend, so I'm looking a little rough, but I know you guys don't care. But I wanted to share something with you, a little bit of encouragement from Psalm 119, and I really feel like if you're in a season of waiting, or if you're in a season where you feel like, God's not answering, or you just kind of feel stuck, I wanted to encourage you a little bit. So in Psalm 119, which is such an amazing psalm, if you've never taken the time to read through it and study it, I would encourage you to do so. We actually did an entire 12-week study on Psalm 19 in our Simply Living for Him online women's community. You can go check that out if you're interested. But here it says in Psalm 119, and I'm reading from my NLT version today, it says, starting in verse 81, I am worn out waiting for your rescue, but I have put my hope in your word. My eyes are straining to see your promises come true. When will you comfort me? I am shriveled like a wineskin in the smoke, but I have not forgotten to obey your decrees. How long must I wait? When will you punish those who persecute me? These arrogant people who hate your instructions have dug deep pits to trap me. All your commands are trustworthy. Protect me from those who hunt me down without cause. They almost finish me off. But I refuse to abandon your commandments. In your unfailing love, spare my life. Then I continue to obey your laws. So here, we have this, idea that there's this waiting to be rescued and, trying to keep your eyes on the Lord while you're maybe going through a trial or a persecution or a struggle or whatever it is. And then I just realized, starting in verse 89, the next kind of section, this psalm is divided into these different sections that are, I think, 8 verses, every 8 verses. And then it says, Your eternal word, O Lord, stands firm in heaven. Your faithfulness extends to every generation, as enduring as the earth you created. And so we have this idea where we go from the one section, the one stanza of, this like waiting and wanting to be rescued and, feeling like maybe that God has forgotten, But then it goes on to say, your eternal word, O Lord. And that phrase caught my eye because first of all, when we live our daily lives, we forget, God's time is not our time. He doesn't have time. He doesn't exist in time. He is eternal. And so we get very caught up because we're humans and we are not infinite right now. We are finite beings. We forget that what is happening right now, even though it may feel like it's, a time of waiting or a time that you need to be rescued, what is happening right now is just a little tiny blip of a much bigger picture. God is eternal. So I love that it goes from this idea where it says, I am worn out waiting for your rescue. But then the next line says, but I have hope in your word. And then in that next stanza, it talks right there about your eternal word, O Lord, stands firm in heaven. Your faithfulness extends to every generation. Whenever you feel stuck right now, whenever you feel like you're in a hardship, a trial, you're waiting, think about the generations that came before you. We also just did a study in our community on Hebrews about those who came before us. When you put into perspective your life amongst all the generations that have come before, it changes everything. You realize that God is an eternal being. History has been going on for generation and generation. What you are going through now is nothing that someone in some other generation hasn't gone through already. And when we look at things in God's timetable that have spanned for thousands of years and will span into eternity, it changes our perspective that the here and now, right now, is all, it's all consuming us. This is all that matters. It matters, but when we put it in that grand perspective, and we realize it's all part of God's big eternal plan. His word has existed forever, and it will exist forever, and it doesn't change. Our lives are constantly changing, and we feel, so wrapped up in everything that's going on. But when you step back and you kind of take a bird's eye view of everything, and you realize that human history has gone from generation to generation, and every generation has suffered, and every generation has waited, and it's all part of God's eternal plan. And what is happening right now is not forever, but what is forever is our time with the Lord in eternity someday. And it changes everything. It helps you. It's not saying that, your trial right now doesn't matter, or your trial right now, needs to end because you just want to get through it. We know that, but it helps you put, into perspective. As I always say, you can't, God may not change the circumstances, but he may change you in them. So if you're waiting, or you're going through a trial, or you're feeling like, Lord, when are you going to rescue me? Instead of, wondering when that rescue is going to come, ask the Lord to work in you while you're waiting. If you never get rescued, ask him to work in you so that whatever trial comes your way, whatever waiting you are in, you have him working in you in it. So if the trial doesn't go away, if you don't get rescued, and if the waiting is way longer than you ever anticipated, then trust that's part of God's plan, and how can he transform you in that? And circumstances may never change, but if we change, that's really the most important thing. It's how we deal with the circumstances, how we, handle the waiting, how we grow during that time. And so remember that in history, you are not alone. There are many generations that came before us. As it says here, your eternal word, O Lord, stands firm in heaven, and your faithfulness extends to every generation. Now, if you look back in time, every generation has gone through hardships and trial and suffering and waiting. But God has stayed the same in all that, and God has a purpose and a plan in all that. It says here, your regulations remain true to this day, for everything serves your plans. Do you hear that? Everything, the trial you're in right now, the waiting you're in right now, the struggle you're in right now, it says here, everything serves your plans. So, I want to encourage you. If you are waiting, if you are in a time where you're like, God, where are you in this? He is in this. He's right there with you. He wants to carry you through. He wants to grow you. He wants to learn. He wants you to learn from him. He wants you to lean on him. He wants you to go to him. And yes, nobody wants to be in a struggle. Everybody wants to be rescued. But even while you're waiting for that time to come, there is purpose in it. And so run to him, no matter how long he, takes in this situation. Run to him and rest in him. And you can endure the waiting. So I hope that this encouraged you today. If it did, let me know what you think. Share it with a friend. And until the next time, I wish you all the blessings and joy in Jesus today.